The first thing Samuel Mercer noticed was not the woman standing at the edge of his property, but the way the crows went silent. He had lived on this stretch of Wyoming territory long enough to understand what silence meant. It meant something had changed, something had arrived that did not belong. He set down the axe and wiped his hands on his trousers. 40 years had carved lines into his face and taken the softness from his hands, but they had also given him patience. He walked toward the fence line without hurrying, letting whoever stood there see him coming, letting them understand he was not afraid and not aggressive, just present. She was tall for a woman, dressed in clothes that had seen better days but carried themselves with dignity. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and her eyes held the kind of exhaustion that came not from one hard night, but from many. A carpetbag sat at her feet. No horse, no wagon. Just her and the wind and the endless grass that rolled toward the mountains. Samuel stopped 10 feet away. He said nothing. He had learned long ago that words spoken too quickly filled spaces that silence could fill better. The woman lifted her chin. Her voice came out steady, but he could hear the effort behind it. She said she was looking for work. She said she could cook, clean, mend, and tend animals. She said she did not need much, just a roof and a chance. Samuel studied her. He saw the careful way she held her left arm close to her body. He saw the fading yellow beneath her eye, mostly hidden by the angle of the sun, but not hidden enough. He saw the way her gaze kept moving to the road behind her, checking, always checking. He asked her name. She hesitated. Then she said it was Clara Dunn. She said it like she was trying the name on for size, like it might not fit if she said it too loud. Samuel nodded once. He told her there was a room above the barn. He told her supper was at sundown. He told her the work was hard and the pay was honest. Then he turned and walked back toward his axe. He did not ask where she came from. He did not ask about the bruises. He did not ask why a woman with educated speech and refined manners was standing alone on a Wyoming road with nothing but a carpetbag. He figured she would tell him when she was ready, or she would not, and either way it was her business. The first week passed in careful silence. Clara worked harder than Samuel expected. She rose before dawn and did not stop until the last light faded. She learned the rhythms of the ranch without being told twice. She had a way with the horses that surprised him, a gentleness that they responded to immediately, pressing their noses into her palm like they had known her forever. Samuel watched her from a distance. He was a man who had lived alone for 12 years, ever since the fever took his wife and the winter took his hope. He had rebuilt himself piece by piece, board by board, until loneliness felt less like pain and more like weather, something you accepted, something you worked around. But Clara changed the shape of his days. Her presence filled corners he had forgotten were empty. The sound of her humming while she cooked, the sight of her walking across the yard with the evening light behind her, the way she paused sometimes to look at the mountains, like she was measuring something only she could see. On the 10th night, the riders came. Samuel heard them before he saw them. 3 horses, moving fast, stopping at the edge of his land like they were deciding whether to cross. He took his rifle from above the door and walked out onto the porch. The moon was full enough to see by, full enough to be seen. The leader was a big man with a city coat and a voice that carried too much authority for someone on another man's property. He asked if Samuel had seen a woman. Tall, dark hair, might be calling herself something other than her real name, might be confused, unstable, dangerous even. He said there was a reward for her safe return. He said her family was worried. Samuel felt Clara behind him before he heard her. She had come to the doorway without making a sound. He could feel her fear like heat from a stove. He told the men he had not seen anyone matching that description. He told them this was his land, and they were welcome to move along. He told them the night was cold and getting colder. The leader smiled in a way that had no warmth in it. He said he would be back. He said families did not give up on their own. Then he turned his horse, and the 3 of them rode into the dark like they had never been there at all. Samuel stood on the porch until he could not hear the hoofbeats anymore. Then he went inside, and found Clara sitting at the table with her hands pressed flat against the wood like she was trying to keep herself from shaking apart. She told him everything. She told him about the husband who had seemed kind until the wedding night and then revealed himself in pieces, each piece worse than the last. She told him about the years of closed doors and careful lies, of doctors paid to say she was hysterical, of a family that believed what they were paid to believe. She told him about the night she finally ran, taking nothing but the clothes on her back and the carpet bag she had hidden under the floorboards for months. Her real name was not Clara. It was Marguerite. Marguerite Ashford, wife of Richard Ashford, whose family owned half the banks in Chicago and whose money could buy anything it wanted. Samuel listened. He did not interrupt. When she finished, he stood and walked to the window and looked out at the night that held more threats than it had an hour ago. He told her she could stay. He told her his land was his, and no man had a right to cross it without his permission. He told her that in Wyoming, money bought less than it did in Chicago, and fists bought less than character, and a woman's word meant something if she had the spine to speak it. She asked him why he was willing to risk his ranch for a stranger. He said he had stopped asking why a long time ago. He said the question that mattered was what kind of man he wanted to be when the sun came up. They prepared together. Samuel taught her to shoot, not because he expected her to fight, but because he believed everyone deserved the chance to defend themselves. She learned quickly, the same way she learned everything, with a focus that left no room for doubt. He reinforced the barn doors. He moved the horses to the back pasture. He sent word to the neighbors, not asking for help, but letting them know the shape of things. Winter came early that year. Snow locked the ranch in silence for weeks at a time. Samuel and Marguerite fell into a rhythm that felt older than their acquaintance. They shared meals and books and long evenings by the fire. She played the piano that had belonged to his wife, and the music filled rooms that had been quiet too long. He told her about the war, about the things he had done that still visited him at night, about the woman he had loved and lost and never stopped missing. They did not touch. They did not speak of what was growing between them, but it was there, solid and patient, waiting for them to find the courage to name it. The confrontation came in spring. Richard Ashford arrived with lawyers and hired men and papers that claimed his wife was mentally unfit, that her disappearance was proof of her instability, that any man harboring her was complicit in her delusion. He brought a doctor who had never met Marguerite but was prepared to testify to her condition. He brought money and threats and the confidence of a man who had never been told no. Samuel met him in the yard. He did not raise his voice. He did not reach for his weapon. He simply stood and listened while Ashford explained how the world worked, how certain men had power and certain women belonged to them, how this unpleasantness could end quickly if Samuel simply stepped aside. When Ashford finished talking, Samuel spoke. He said that Marguerite Ashford was standing on his land of her own free will. He said that in Wyoming, a woman's word was worth as much as any paper a lawyer could produce. He said that if Mr. Ashford wanted to take her, he was welcome to try, but he should understand that trying would cost him more than he was prepared to pay. The hired men shifted. The lawyer looked uncomfortable. Ashford's face went red with a rage that Samuel recognized, the rage of a man who had always gotten what he wanted and was suddenly discovering the limits of his power. Neighbors arrived. Joe McCandless from the next ranch, Tom Bellamy from town, Sarah Wheeler who ran the general store and had no patience for men who thought money made them right. They did not say much. They did not have to. Their presence spoke bar. Sheriff came last. He was a practical man who understood that keeping peace sometimes meant choosing sides. He read the papers Ashford produced. He asked Marguerite questions, calm and direct. She answered every one without hesitation, without confusion, without anything that suggested a mind that was not her own. Sheriff told Ashford there was no evidence of instability. He told him that Wyoming did not recognize guardianship papers signed in another state without cause. He told him that if He wanted to pursue the matter. He could do so through proper legal channels, but until then, Marguerite Ashford was free to stay where she chose. Ashford left. He swore he would return with more lawyers, more papers, more power, but everyone watching knew the truth. He had lost something that money could not buy back. He had lost the assumption that the world would bend to him. The legal battle lasted months. Letters went back and forth. Judges considered. Evidence was examined. In the end, the marriage was dissolved. The papers that called Marguerite unstable were discredited. The doctor admitted he had been paid to provide a diagnosis he had never verified. Ashford faced questions of his own. Questions about cruelty and confinement and the kind of power that left bruises. By the time it was over, summer had come again. Samuel and Marguerite stood on the porch as the sun set behind the mountains. The light was golden and soft, the kind of light that made promises feel possible. She told him she did not know how to thank him for what he had done. He told her thanks were not necessary. He told her that standing for what was right was not a debt that needed repaying. She asked him what he wanted from the future. He said he wanted her to stay, not because she needed protection, but because the ranch felt different with her in it, because he had spent 12 years learning to live with emptiness, and he did not want to learn it again. She took his hand. Her fingers were calloused from work, stronger than they had been when she arrived. She said she was not the same woman who had stood at his fence line with nothing but fear in a carpet bag. She said she had found something here she did not know she was looking for. She said she wanted to build something that lasted. He kissed her then, not desperately, but deliberately, the way a man kisses a woman when he knows. There will be time for more. They married in autumn beneath the cottonwood tree where his first wife was buried. It felt right to honor what had been while building what would be. The neighbors came. The food was simple. The vows were spoken steady and clear. Years passed. The ranch prospered. Marguerite opened a school for the children of neighboring families, teaching them to read and write and question and think. Samuel grew older and slower, but the peace in his eyes never faded. They had a daughter they named after resilience, and a son they named after hope. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when the stars came out thick above the plains, they would stand together and remember the night everything began, the silence that meant change. The woman at the fence line, the choice to open a door instead of closing it. The world had tried to break them, the world had failed. And in the space between stars, in the silence that held more than words, they had found the only thing that ever really mattered, each other and the courage to stay.